The emergency klaxons screamed through Station Omega 7 like banshees, announcing the end of everything. Commander Vex Thralon pressed his four-fingered hands against his elongated skull, trying to process what his tactical officer had just whispered in his ear. The words made no sense. They couldn't make sense. "Run that by me again, Crit," Vex said, his voice carrying that special kind of calm that usually preceded someone getting spacing out an airlock. "Because I could have sworn you just told me that a human ship is requesting docking permission." Lieutenant Crit Molnar's tentacles writhed nervously around his console, a sure sign the young Zenthari was about to deliver news that would ruin everyone's day. "Sir, the transmission is coming from a vessel that matches pre-war human design specifications. The pilot is requesting permission to attend our War Council meeting." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of life support systems and the occasional beep from monitoring stations. Vex felt his secondary heart skip a beat. Humans, the mythical terror species that had supposedly been wiped out 3 cycles ago when the Hegemony glassed their homeworld, the same humans whose ghost stories still kept entire fleets awake during night shifts. "Well," Vex said, his voice dripping with the kind of sarcasm that had earned him 3 court-martials and a reputation as the most insubordinate commander in the Resistance fleet. "This day just keeps getting better and better. First the Hegemony breaks through our outer perimeter. Now we have got fairy tales knocking on our front door." But even as he spoke, Vex's tactical display was painting a picture that made his scales crawl. The approaching vessel was small, roughly frigate-sized, but its energy signature was all wrong. Too efficient, too clean, and it was moving through the debris field surrounding their station like it was taking a leisurely stroll through a park, dodging chunks of twisted metal that should have turned it into cosmic dust. "Sir," Crit's voice cracked slightly, "the ship is broadcasting human identification codes, ancient ones, from before the war." Vex's laugh came out as more of a bark. "Of course it is, because apparently today is Let's Test Vex's Sanity Day, and nobody bothered to tell me." He turned to his communications officer, a stocky Thraxian named Beck Torval, whose idea of subtlety involved explosive charges. "Beck, open a channel. Let's see who's brave enough or stupid enough to impersonate an extinct species." The main screen flickered to life, and Vex immediately wished it hadn't. The figure staring back at them was undeniably human, bipedal, with that unsettling forward-facing predator gaze that had made humans the stuff of nightmares across half the galaxy. Short, dark hair, pale skin marked with what looked like old scars, and eyes that seemed to catalogue every weakness in the room within seconds of connection. The human wore a simple black uniform with no insignia, but something about the way they carried themselves screamed military authority. "This is Captain Maya Volkov of the vessel Defiant Ghost," the human said, their voice carrying that peculiar flat intonation that all humans seem to possess. "I'm requesting permission to dock and attend your war council. We need to talk." Vex felt his world tilt sideways, not because of what the human said, but because of how they said it. No pleading, no desperate begging for sanctuary, just a simple statement of fact, delivered with the kind of confidence that suggested refusing might not be the healthiest option. "Captain Volkov," Vex said, putting every ounce of his command presence behind the words, "I hate to break this to you, but humans have been extinct for 3 cycles. The Hegemony made sure of that when they turned Earth into a molten ball of glass. The humans' expression didn't change. If anything, they looked mildly amused. Rumors of our extinction have been greatly exaggerated, Commander, though I appreciate the Hegemony's thoroughness in spreading that particular bit of propaganda." Propaganda? Vex's secondary hearts were doing interesting things to his circulation. "We watched the orbital bombardment feeds. Every major news network in the galaxy covered it. Earth is gone, Captain, along with every human on it." Maya Volkov's smile was the kind that made predators take a step backward. "Earth was evacuated 6 months before the bombardment, Commander. Every last human. We have been very busy these past 3 years, and now it's time to collect on some overdue debts." The bridge erupted in nervous chatter from various crew members, but Vex barely heard them. His mind was racing through implications that made his blood run cold. If humans had survived, If they'd had 3 years to prepare while everyone thought they were dead, "You are lying," he said, but even he could hear the uncertainty in his own voice. "Am I?" Maya tilted her head slightly, and Vex was reminded of a Terran predator he'd once seen in a documentary, studying its prey before the kill. "Tell me, Commander, how many Hegemony supply convoys have mysteriously vanished in the past year? How many of their forward bases have suffered catastrophic equipment failures? How many of their admirals have died in what your intelligence reports classify as unexplained accidents?" Vex's blood went ice cold, because he knew the answer to those questions. The Resistance had been taking credit for most of those incidents, but they'd always wondered how they'd managed to be so effective lately. Their success rate had tripled in the past 18 months, and their intelligence had been unnaturally accurate. "That was us," he said weakly. "Some of it," Maya agreed. "We have been very careful to make sure you got the credit. After all, nobody expects help from extinct species." Lieutenant Crit's tentacles had gone completely still, which was the Zenthari equivalent of a panic attack. "Sir," he whispered, "if the humans are alive, if they have been coordinating strikes against the Hegemony, then we have been fighting alongside ghosts," Vex finished. He looked back at the screen where Maya Volkov waited with the patience of someone who held all the cards and knew it. "What do you want, Captain?" "I want to attend your war council, Commander. Because in approximately 6 hours the Hegemony is going to launch the largest offensive in galactic history. They are calling it Operation Final Solution, and they plan to wipe out every single member of the Resistance fleet." The bridge went dead silent. Vex felt something cold settle in his stomach. "How could you possibly know that?" Maya's smile turned sharp enough to cut diamond. "Because 3 years ago, when everyone thought we were dead, we did something no other species in galactic history has ever managed. We infiltrated the Hegemony. Not their outer networks or their minor installations. We got inside their core command structure. We have people in their high command, their intelligence services, their research divisions." She paused, letting that sink in before delivering the killing blow. "We have been watching them from the inside, Commander, learning their weaknesses, mapping their infrastructure, and now we are ready to tear their entire empire apart from within, but we are going to need your help to do it." Vex stared at the human on his screen and realized he was looking at something far more dangerous than any Hegemony dreadnought. He was looking at a species that had spent 3 years pretending to be dead while infiltrating their enemies. A species that had turned their own extinction into the ultimate strategic advantage. "Dock in Bay 7, he said finally. "But Captain Volkov, if this is some kind of Hegemony trick—" "It's not," Maya said simply. "And Commander, you might want to call an emergency session of your war council, because what I'm about to tell them is going to change everything you think you know about this war." The transmission cut out, leaving Vex staring at a blank screen and trying to process what had just happened. Around him, his bridge crew was buzzing with nervous energy and barely contained panic. "Sir," Vex said carefully, "what are your orders?" Vex looked around at his crew, these brave souls who had volunteered to fight an impossible war against overwhelming odds. They'd been losing for 3 years, watching world after world fall to the Hegemony war machine. They'd held together through desperation and sheer stubborn refusal to surrender, and now a human, supposedly extinct for 3 years, had just waltzed into their lives claiming to have infiltrated the enemy high command. "Call an emergency war council," Vex said. "Every senior officer, every ship captain, every intelligence analyst. If Captain Volkov is telling the truth about this Hegemony offensive, we need to know about it. And if she's lying," he paused, considering his options, "well, we will deal with that when it happens." As his crew scrambled to carry out his orders, Vex found himself staring out at the debris field surrounding their station. Somewhere out there, a human ship was approaching, carrying secrets that could either save them all or doom them completely. He'd always prided himself on his ability to read people, to spot deception and manipulation from light years away. But Maya Volkov had looked him in the eye and delivered information that was either the most elaborate lie in galactic history or the key to winning an unwinnable war. "Humans," he muttered to himself. "Why does it always have to be humans?" 20 minutes later, Vex stood in the observation deck, overlooking Docking Bay 7, watching as the most impossible thing he'd ever seen maneuvered into their station. The defiant ghost was beautiful in the way that only human ships could be, All clean lines and efficient curves, built for speed and stealth rather than brute force intimidation. But it was what he couldn't see that worried him. His sensors were having trouble getting consistent readings on the ship's hull composition, and the energy signatures were unlike anything in his database. Either human technology had advanced significantly during their supposed extinction, or they'd been holding back their true capabilities even before the war. "Sir," Lieutenant Crit appeared at his elbow, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else in the galaxy. "The War Council is assembled. Admiral Kresh is asking for a full briefing on the situation." Vex nodded absently, still watching as the human ship settled into the docking bay with mechanical precision. "Tell the Admiral that we are about to find out whether the most dangerous species in galactic history has been playing dead for 3 years, or whether we are all about to become part of the most elaborate hegemony trap ever conceived. And which do you think it is, sir?" Vex watched as the docking clamps engaged and atmospheric seals activated. In a few minutes, Maya Volkov would walk through those doors and either save them all or destroy everything they'd fought for. "Honestly, Crit, I'm hoping it's the first option, because if humans really have been playing dead while infiltrating the hegemony, then we might actually have a chance at winning this war." He paused, watching as figures in environmental suits began moving around the human ship. "But if it's the second option, well, at least we will go out knowing we were beaten by the best." The docking bay doors sealed shut with a definitive clang that seemed to echo through the entire station. Whatever happened next, Vex knew that their war against the hegemony was about to take a turn that none of them could have predicted. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, the stories about human cunning and tactical brilliance hadn't been exaggerated after all. He was about to find out. The War Council chamber had never felt smaller. Admiral Kresh sat at the head of the massive oval table, her 6 arms folded in what Vex recognized as barely controlled agitation. Around the table, the most senior officers of the Resistance fleet shifted nervously in their seats, waiting for answers that might not exist. Vex stood beside the sealed entrance, checking his chronometer for the 5th time in as many minutes. Maya Volkov had been aboard the station for exactly 37 minutes, and each passing second felt like an eternity. "Commander Thrallon," Admiral Kresh's voice carried the weight of command and 3 decades of military experience. "Perhaps you could explain why we are all sitting here waiting for a ghost." Before Vex could answer, the chamber doors slid open with a soft hiss. Maya Volkov walked in like she owned the place, and Vex had to admire the sheer audacity of it. No hesitation, no uncertainty, just pure human confidence wrapped in a simple black uniform. The reaction around the table was immediate and electric. General Torque, the massive Horthak commander, actually knocked over his chair standing up. Colonel Zara Tecton, the Resistance's chief intelligence officer, went pale enough that her natural blue skin looked almost white. "Well," Maya said, surveying the room with those unsettling predator eyes, "this is cozy. Mind if I sit down?" Admiral Kresh's voice came out as barely more than a whisper. "You are actually human." "Last time I checked," Maya replied, settling into an empty chair with casual ease. "Though I appreciate the dramatic entrance, really sets the mood for what's about to be a very interesting conversation." General Torque was still standing, his massive frame trembling with what Vex hoped was shock rather than rage. "Impossible. We saw the bombardment. Earth is gone. Every human world is gone." Maya's smile was sharp enough to cut through hull plating. "General, with all due respect, you saw exactly what we wanted you to see. Earth was evacuated completely 6 months before the hegemony arrived. Every human, every piece of critical technology, every cultural artifact that mattered. The bombardment hit empty cities and abandoned infrastructure. The silence that followed was so complete that Vex could hear the station's atmospheric processes cycling in the distance. "You abandoned your homeworld," Colonel Tecton said slowly, her intelligence officer's mind clearly racing through implications. "Voluntarily. We sacrificed it," Maya corrected. "There's a difference. Earth was our home, but it was also our weakness. The hegemony knew where to find us, how to hurt us. So we gave them what they expected to find, and disappeared while they celebrated their victory." Admiral Kresh leaned forward, her 6 arms now braced against the table. "Where did you go?" Maya's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. "We went hunting, Admiral. We scattered across the galaxy in small groups, using ships and technology the hegemony had never seen before. We infiltrated their colonies, their military bases, their government installations. We learned their languages, their customs, their weaknesses. She paused, letting that sink in before continuing. For 3 years we have been living among them, working for them, earning their trust. And all the while, we have been mapping every single weakness in their empire. The implications hit Vex like a physical blow. The intelligence reports, the successful raids, the equipment failures, all of it, Maya confirmed. We have been feeding you information and supporting your operations while making sure you got the credit. After all, dead species don't win wars. General Torque finally sat back down, his chair creaking under his massive weight. How many of you are there? Maya's smile turned predatory. Enough. That's not an answer, Colonel Tecton said sharply. It's the only answer you are getting, Maya replied without missing a beat. But I will tell you this, we have operatives in every major Hegemony installation, including their high command. We know their battle plans, their supply routes, their communication codes. We know which commanders are competent and which ones are idiots. We know where they keep their strategic reserves and how long it takes them to deploy reinforcements. Admiral Kresh's voice was carefully controlled. And you are sharing this information because in 5 hours and 17 minutes, the Hegemony is going to launch Operation Final Solution. They are bringing every available ship, every piece of advanced technology, every weapon they have been holding in reserve. Their plan is simple: wipe out the resistance fleet completely, then spend the next decade systematically eliminating every species that ever opposed them. The War Council erupted in overlapping voices, but Maya simply sat back and waited for the noise to die down. When it finally did, she continued as if nothing had happened. They know about this station. They know about your supply routes and your safe houses. They know which planets are still supporting the resistance and which ones have switched sides. In short, gentlemen and ladies, they know everything. Vex felt his blood turn to ice water. How? Because they have been planning this operation for 2 years, Maya said simply, and because they have a spy in your organization. The silence that followed was deafening. Vex looked around the table, seeing suspicion bloom in every face. These people had fought together for years, trusted each other with their lives, and now a human ghost was telling them that one of them was a traitor. Who? Admiral Kresh's voice could have frozen plasma. Maya shook her head. That's not important right now. What matters is that Operation Final Solution launches in 5 hours, and if we don't act fast, every ship and every soul in this fleet is going to be space dust by tomorrow morning. Colonel Tecton leaned forward, her intelligence training kicking in. You have a plan. We have the plan, Maya corrected. The question is whether you are ready to hear it. We are listening, Admiral Kresh said. Maya stood up and walked to the large tactical display at the center of the room. Her fingers moved across the controls with practiced ease, bringing up a 3-dimensional map of local space. Red markers indicated known hegemony positions, while blue showed resistance assets. The hegemony fleet is assembling here, she said, pointing to a position roughly 2 light hours away. Admiral Krex is commanding personally, with 47 capital ships and over 300 support vessels. Their plan is to jump in simultaneously from 6 different vectors, overwhelming your defenses through sheer numerical superiority. She manipulated the display, showing the projected attack patterns. Standard hegemony doctrine: brutal, effective, and completely predictable. So how do we stop them? General Torque asked. Maya's smile was terrifying. We don't stop them. We let them come. The room exploded in protests, but Maya held up her hand for silence. The hegemony is bringing everything they have to this fight. Every ship, every commander, every piece of advanced technology. They are so confident of victory that they have stripped their home systems of defenses. Understanding began to dawn on Vex's face. You are not planning to defend the station. The station is already lost, Maya said bluntly. Has been since they learned its location. But while they are busy destroying empty corridors and evacuation shuttles, we are going to hit them where they never expected an attack. She changed the display, showing hegemony core systems, 17 primary worlds, 8 major shipyards, 12 command centers, all of them currently defended by skeleton crews, because every available ship is heading here. You want us to abandon the fleet, Admiral Kresh said slowly. I want you to save the fleet, Maya corrected. We evacuate everyone to predetermined coordinates, let the hegemony waste their ammunition on an empty station, then hit their home systems while their pants are down. Colonel Tecton was studying the tactical display with professional interest. The logistics alone would be nightmare, coordinating simultaneous strikes across 17 systems, maintaining communication security, ensuring our forces don't get caught in a trap. Already handled, Maya said. We have been preparing for this operation for 6 months. Every target has been scouted, every defense analyzed, every escape route mapped. We have operatives in position to disable critical systems and provide real-time intelligence. She manipulated the display again, showing detailed attack plans for each target system. The beauty of it is that the Hegemony will never see it coming. They are so focused on finally crushing the resistance that they have forgotten the first rule of warfare: never leave your home undefended. General Talk was studying the plans with growing amazement. This is insane. You are talking about coordinated strikes across half the galaxy, perfect timing, and operational security that would make intelligence services weep with envy. It's ambitious, Maya agreed, but it's also our only chance. The Hegemony has been growing stronger while we have been playing defense. If we don't act now, there won't be a resistance fleet left to save.
Admiral Kresh stood up slowly, her 6 arms moving in what Vex recognized as deep thought. Captain Volkov, what you are proposing is either the most brilliant military strategy in galactic history or the most elaborate suicide mission ever conceived. Sometimes, Maya said, those are the same thing. The Admiral nodded slowly. If we do this, if we commit everything to your plan, what guarantee do we have that it will work? Maya's expression grew serious. None? I can't promise you victory, Admiral. I can't promise that all of us will survive. What I can promise is that if we do nothing, we will all be dead by tomorrow morning, and the Hegemony will spend the next decade systematically exterminating every species that ever opposed them. She looked around the room, meeting each officer's gaze directly. But if we act, if we are willing to risk everything on one coordinated strike, we have a chance to end this war. Not just survive it, not just delay the inevitable, but actually win. The War Council fell silent as the magnitude of the decision settled over them. Vex found himself thinking about all the battles they'd fought, all the friends they'd lost, all the worlds that had fallen to Hegemony rule. For 3 years they'd been fighting a losing battle, slowly bleeding ships and personnel while the enemy grew stronger. There's something else you need to know, Maya said quietly. The Hegemony isn't planning to stop with the resistance. Once you are gone, they are going to implement what they call the final protocol, systematic extermination of every non-Hegemony species in the galaxy. They want to rule over an empty galaxy populated only by their own kind. The implications hit everyone at the same time. This wasn't just about military victory. This was about the survival of every free species in known space. How long do we have? Admiral Kresh asked. Maya checked her chronometer. 4 hours and 38 minutes until the Hegemony fleet jumps. If we are going to do this, we need to start evacuation procedures now. The Admiral looked around the table one final time, all in favor of Operation Ghost Strike. Every hand in the room went up without hesitation. Then let's get to work, Admiral Kresh said. Captain Volkov, I'm placing you in operational command of this mission. Don't make me regret it. Maya's smile was sharp as a blade. Admiral, by this time tomorrow, either we will have won the war or we will all be too dead to worry about regrets. As the War Council began dissolving into organized chaos, with officers rushing to coordinate the most complex military operation in galactic history, Vex found himself standing beside Maya Volkov. Question, he said quietly. When this is all over, assuming we survive, what happens to humanity? Do you come back from the dead officially? Maya's expression grew thoughtful. That depends on whether the galaxy is ready for the truth about what humans become when you corner us and take away everything we love. She looked out at the stars visible through the chamber's viewport. We have spent 3 years learning how to be ghosts, Commander. Sometimes the dead are more dangerous than the living. As klaxons began sounding throughout the station, signaling the beginning of the largest evacuation in Resistance history, Vex realized that Maya Volkov was right about one thing. By tomorrow, everything would be different. Either they would all be dead, or the galaxy would learn why you should never assume that humans stay dead when you kill them. The war was about to end, one way or another. 4 hours and 12 minutes later, Vex stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the final evacuation shuttles dock with the assembled fleet. The operation had been a masterpiece of coordination, with over 200 ships managing to evacuate Station Omega-7 without triggering a single Hegemony sensor alert. Sir Lieutenant Crit reported, his tentacles steady for the first time all day. All civilian personnel have been transferred to the hospital ships. Military units are reporting ready for jump. Vex nodded, but his attention was focused on the tactical display showing the approaching Hegemony Armada. 47 capital ships, just as Maya had predicted, moving in perfect formation toward what they believed would be their final victory. "Commander," Maya's voice crackled through the communication system from her position aboard the Defiant Ghost, "are you ready to see what 3 years of human planning looks like?" "As ready as I will ever be," Vex replied. "Though I have to admit, watching the largest fleet in galactic history approach our position while we prepare to abandon it feels decidedly unnatural." Maya's laugh carried that peculiar human quality that made it sound both amused and terrifying. "Wait until you see what we have left behind for them." The next 30 minutes passed in tense silence as the Resistance fleet moved to their designated jump coordinates. Vex found himself watching the chronometer, counting down the seconds until the Hegemony arrived at what they expected to be a target-rich environment. "Hegemony fleet dropping out of hyperspace," Crit announced. "Multiple contacts, all vectors. They are forming attack formation exactly as predicted." On the main screen, Vex watched as the most powerful military force in galactic history materialized around the now empty Station Omega-7. The Hegemony commanders had brought everything: massive dreadnoughts bristling with weapons, carrier ships loaded with fighter squadrons, support vessels carrying enough firepower to level entire planets. "Admiral Krex is transmitting on all frequencies," the communications officer reported. "He's demanding our immediate surrender." "Let him talk to empty corridors," Maya said. "In 3 minutes he's going to realize he's been had." Vex watched as the Hegemony fleet moved into attack position, their massive ships taking time to maneuver into optimal firing solutions. It was textbook Hegemony doctrine, overwhelming firepower applied with methodical precision. 2 minutes, Maya announced. "All strike teams report ready. Operation Ghost Strike is a go." Across 17 star systems, human operatives who had spent 3 years building perfect cover identities began their final mission. Maintenance workers who had never missed a shift suddenly found reasons to be near critical systems. Administrative assistants who had earned the trust of their superiors accessed classified databases. Security guards who had been model employees for years began experiencing convenient equipment malfunctions. 30 seconds, Maya said, and Vex could hear the satisfaction in her voice. "Admiral Krex is about to learn why you should never celebrate victory before the battle is over." The Hegemony fleet opened fire on Station Omega-7 with enough concentrated firepower to vaporize a small moon. The ancient station, which had served as the heart of the Resistance for 3 years, died in a spectacular explosion that lit up the surrounding nebula like a miniature star. "Now," Maya said simply. Across the galaxy, 17 Hegemony core worlds suddenly found themselves under attack from within. Critical defense platforms went offline due to mysterious system failures. Communication networks experienced coordinated outages. Weapons depots exploded in chain reactions that looked suspiciously like accidents. And through it all, human agents who had been trusted employees for years revealed their true nature with devastating efficiency. On the bridge of his flagship, Vex watched as reports flooded in from the strike teams. The Hegemony's home systems, stripped of their primary defenses to support Operation Final Solution, were falling faster than anyone had dared hope. Strike Team Alpha reports successful capture of the Hegemony Fleet Command Center, one communications officer announced. They have access to all operational codes and fleet positions. Strike Team Beta has secured the primary shipyards at Craxis Prime, another reported. 17 capital ships under construction have been sabotaged beyond repair. Strike Team Gamma reports that Hegemony High Command is in complete chaos, a third added. Their emergency protocols are failing due to compromised communication systems. Vex felt something he hadn't experienced in 3 years of desperate warfare. Hope. Real, tangible hope that they might actually win. "How?" he asked Maya over the communications link. "How did you coordinate something this complex without anyone detecting the operation?" Maya's response carried a note of grim satisfaction. "Because we learned something important during our supposed extinction, Commander. The galaxy expects humans to be direct, confrontational, predictable. They expect us to fight like warriors." She paused, and when she continued, her voice carried an edge that made Vex's scales crawl. "But 3 years of playing dead taught us how to fight like ghosts instead. We became invisible, patient, methodical. We learned to think like our enemies, to become so much a part of their world that they forgot we were ever their enemies at all." On the tactical display, Vex could see Admiral Krex's fleet beginning to realize something was wrong. Emergency transmissions were flooding in from Hegemony core systems, reporting impossible attacks from forces that shouldn't exist. "The beauty of it," Maya continued, "is that they trained us, fed us, promoted us, trusted us with their secrets. For 3 years we were model citizens of the Hegemony, and all the while we were learning exactly how to destroy them." Admiral Krex's voice suddenly cut through the communications chatter, broadcasting on all frequencies with barely controlled panic. "All units, abort current operation. Return to home systems immediately. We are under coordinated attack from unknown forces." But it was too late. The Hegemony fleet, designed for offensive operations, couldn't simply turn around and jump back to hyperspace. It would take them hours to safely navigate out of the debris field created by Station Omega-7's destruction, hours they didn't have. Strike Team Delta reports successful infiltration of the Hegemony Council chambers, another communications officer announced. "The governing body of the Hegemony is now under resistance control." Vex stared at the tactical display, watching the most powerful military force in galactic history struggle to respond to attacks they had never seen coming. In the space of 1 hour, the entire balance of power in the galaxy had shifted. "Captain Volkov," he said quietly, "remind me never to make humanity my enemy." Maya's laugh carried across the communication link like the sound of victory itself. "Too late for that advice, Commander, but I will keep it in mind for future reference." As reports continued to flood in from across the galaxy, Vex realized he was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. Not just a military victory, but the complete collapse of an empire that had seemed invincible just hours before. The humans had done more than survive their supposed extinction. They had turned it into the ultimate weapon, using their enemy's certainty of human destruction to engineer the most comprehensive military victory in recorded history. And they had done it all while everyone thought they were dead. "Commander," Maya said, and her voice carried a note of finality, "you might want to prepare a statement for the galactic news networks, because in about an hour, every species in known space is going to learn that humanity is very much alive." She paused, and when she continued, Vex could hear the smile in her voice, "and that we have been very, very busy." As the Hegemony fleet continued its desperate attempt to return to systems that were no longer under their control, Vex found himself thinking about the stories that would be told about this day. The day an extinct species rose from the grave to save the galaxy. The day humanity proved that sometimes the best way to win a war is to let your enemies think they have already won. The war was over, and against all odds, the good guys had won. But as Vex watched the reports continue to stream in from across the galaxy, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of humanity's return to the galactic stage, and he wasn't entirely sure that was a good thing.